Yesterday, December 7th,
The attack on Pearl Harbor marked the day the U.S. would enter World War II.
a date which will live in infamy.
America would now take an active role in fighting the war abroad. The first step to winning the war was to win the support of the people by encouraging citizens to take a direct role in helping troops and buying war bonds through propaganda. The government's best tool for filming, producing, and delivering this propaganda was through Hollywood. Soon after the U.S. entered the war, Franklin Delano Roosevelt commissioned Hollywood studios to create films to emotionalize the public and bring awareness to the conflict. Hollywood was now in the business of making war propaganda, promoting patriotism and support for the war effort. Patriotic propaganda was seen as profitable by Hollywood and helped transform the social and political stances of the country while serving as an instrument of national policy. The propaganda films encouraged people to engage in the war in all aspects of life, from buying war bonds to growing victory gardens in the backyard.
Is the staggering revelation of the now famous Doolittle raid.
Between 1942 and 1945, Hollywood released 1,700 features, 500 of which dealt directly with war-related materials. One of the most famous of these films was Casablanca. The film was about a nightclub owner named Rick Blaine in the city of Casablanca, Morocco, during the early days of World War II. When his former lover and her new husband appear in his club, hiding from the Nazi regime, it is up to Rick to get them safely to a plane to America to hopefully escape the Nazis.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
Many saw this as a political allegory for the U.S. moving from neutrality to all-out war. Another well-known war film was Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator. The film is about a Jewish barber who, after serving in World War I, returns home to find that his country has been taken over by an anti-Semitic ruler. We now follow him as he tries to escape imprisonment by Nazi soldiers. The film was a plea to the world to not bargain with Hitler, but to stand up to him and the Nazi Party for all of their atrocities. As the war went on, more films were based off real-life events. The film 30 Seconds Over Tokyo portrayed the true story about the now famous Doolittle raid. It follows Lieutenant Colonel James H. Doolittle and the U.S. Air Force on their bombing mission over Japan, successfully striking Tokyo. Live-action studios were not the only ones in the business of making war films. Animation companies also joined in the business of propaganda. Walt Disney himself took an active role in making U.S. propaganda through his animated films. The government saw Walt Disney as a builder of public morale, providing instruction and training for sailors and soldiers. Over 90% of Disney employees were devoted to the production of propaganda. Disney Studios produced more than 400 feet of film, representing some 68 hours of continuous film. One of the more notable shorts created by Disney was Education for Death, depicting the life of a young boy in the Hitler Youth. The film appealed to emotion, trying to shock the audience at the way children are indoctrinated into the Nazi Party, and also promoted Western ideology.
Wir sind die nordische Rasse. Alle anderen Völker werden unsere Sklaven sein.
Germans are a super race. All others will be slaves.
Wir sind unübertrefflich. Wir fürchten niemand.
Germans are unconquerable.
The most famous short created by Disney, however, was Der Führer's Face, which featured Donald Duck working in Nazi Germany, building bullets and artillery shells. The US Army wanted to depict Germans as living in a land that was a facade of the wonderful promises made by Hitler. It also wished to show that the working condition in German factories was not as glorious as Hitler made them sound in his speeches. Animated films also portrayed racist themes like anti-German, Italian, and Japanese. Anti-German emphasized the cruelness and barbarism of Hitler and the Nazis, as depicted in Education for Death. Germans were often stereotyped as evil in films and posters, although many of the atrocities were specifically ascribed to Hitler and the Nazis, rather than to the undifferentiated Germans. Anti-Italian was less emphasized than that of German and Japanese propaganda, but when it was, Italians were stereotyped much like Germans as evil in films. Anti-Japanese propaganda was the most profound of all the propagandas. Anti-Japanese sentiment popped up in a very pronounced way after the Pearl Harbor attacks. They were portrayed as a foreign, grotesque, and uncivilized enemy. Japanese Americans would be portrayed as massively supporting Japan, only awaiting the signal to commit sabotage. The US government took an active role in screening and censoring films through the Office of War Information. Roosevelt created the OWI to boost wartime production at home and undermine the enemy morale in Europe, Asia, and Africa. It sponsored studios and even sent personnel to supervise the making of movies. One way they were involved in propaganda was through censorship. It was used to keep people focused on the war to prevent them from growing disillusioned, and was crucial in keeping the public focused on the war front. The government had control of public information that an enemy might exploit to undermine conduct of military operations, strategic policy, or homeland defense. In war, a country must use all its resources in order to achieve victory. The most important step to victory is to win the support of the people. Hollywood was the most effective tool of the government for delivering propaganda. They were fantastical stories about heroes, both real and fictional, meant to excite the people. They helped in rallying and gaining support for the war. Along with rallying the people, propaganda films were very popular amongst the general audience, so much so that World War II films are still being made today, proving the long-lasting impact on our culture and in our lives.